Here comes Bernie Sanders. Well, not quite yet, but you should probably get prepared to feel the burn. According to Politico, Senator Bernie Sanders as recently as Saturday, convened his top political advisors in Washington for a planning meeting that included a discussion on the feasibility and shape of a possible 2020 presidential campaign. This is according to about a half dozen Democrats that were familiar with the gathering, talking to Politico, of course. Now, along with Bernie Sanders, participants in the meeting included Jeff Weaver, that's, of course, Bernie Sanders' former campaign manager, his wife, Jane Sanders, called in on the phone. Also present was Nina Turner. Nina Turner, of course, runs Our Revolution, which is Bernie Sanders' political organization. So they were all there. There were other people there as well from his campaign. So, okay, big gathering, right, on Saturday. So what happened? What did they talk about? Well, one of the topics was, of course, 2020, but it wasn't all about 2020. However, during the meeting, the top-line message the Vermont senator received from all of his different operatives gathered during the government shutdown was basically what they've been telling him all along. Hey, man, if you ran, you would not only be the front runner, right? So you'd be the leading person to actually get the Democratic nomination. And if you actually plan on running, now's the time to do it. So they've been telling him this all along, like, hey, look at the polls. You're the most popular politician in America. Your polls are consistently good against Donald Trump, and they've always been good against Donald Trump, even back in 2016. And we think that you should run. And so, and if you're going to run, do it now. Do it now, do it now, do it now. Get an early start. So, now, of course, all that is true, right? Yes, he would be the front runner. He'd also be the obvious choice, right? Again, he is, I see him, and I think most of the country sees him as a direct rebuke of President Donald Trump, because he is a left-leaning populist with an enormous following. And of course, I did mention he's the most popular politician in America. Polls have consistently confirmed that. And so, look, now, of course, one of the ways the establishment is fighting back against that is just by not including him in the polls. And it's maddening. But look, he's popular not just among Democrats and African Americans, women. He's actually more popular among Democratic voters, African Americans, and women than he is among white men. So all those things about, oh, it's the Bernie bros, he only appeals to white college-educated liberals and dudes, that's not true. He actually has a pretty dedicated following across all different demographics. So, and look, independents, he's very popular with independents, and he's also incredibly popular with, well, somewhat popular, I should say, even among some Republicans. So, because they see him as uncorrupted, which is true. Now, what was Bernie Sanders' response throughout this? Sanders, according to multiple Democrats, said, quote, I haven't yet made a decision about 2020, but I still think beating Donald Trump is the most important thing for this country. And I want to be ready if I do decide to run. So he wants to be ready for running for office. And that makes sense. Now, Politico notes that Sanders, in order to do that, regularly speaks with a close group of advisors and periodically brings top allies in to discuss his political maneuvers. Saturday's get-together included planning for the rest of 2018, but also included, as well as a specifically slated 2020 component. Now, this, according to Democrats familiar with the session, was scheduled for the one-year anniversary of Trump's inauguration, which happened to also be during the shutdown. Now, part of the discussion included gaming out how the rest of the field might look since 2016's landscape, effectively pitting Sanders against Hillary Clinton. So now that was, they know, a far more straightforward race. Yes, you only have pretty much one other viable opponent, but of course this opponent had the entire establishment behind her. She was the establishment favorite. She was the pick, right? They had coronated her to win, so they had stacked everything in her favor as early as 2014, 2015. Okay, so now this next race is actually going to be far more different because now we're going to see basically a clean slate for the most part, and I'm going to explain that. But what we'll have is likely, so far, Joe Biden, of course, Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, maybe Elizabeth Warren might jump in, and the newest news is John Kerry is also looking at jumping in. Wonderful. So that's quite a big field. Now, that's just some of the possible entries. There could be more. There could be a random New York billionaire that jumps in as well. So we don't know what's going to happen in 2020. It's still pretty far away. Now, Politico also notes, though, that if Sanders were to throw his hat in the ring, that field would likely shape themselves around him. Now, that's very interesting. You know what that means? Most of these candidates are going to start pushing toward the left, especially when it comes to their rhetoric and some of their stated policy positions. Now, that's actually really good, and we've got a couple examples of that. Cory Booker, for one. I mean, Cory Booker, yes, he's your standard Wall Street establishment politician. You know what he's been pushing? The legalization of marijuana nationwide. That's a pretty strong progressive position, and I have to give him some credit for that. Not only that, but look, you had Kamala Harris. Right now, she's getting attacked by Hillary Clinton supporters for co-sponsoring Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All. Look, I'm aware, right? I'm not naive. Of course it's political posturing. Of course they're saying they're getting on board these massively popular programs and ideas because that's where the Democratic Party is going. The Democratic Party is going further and further to the left, and that's actually a good thing. At least the Democratic voting base is going to the left. Some of your leadership, most of your leadership, I should say, at this point is sadly strongly entrenched in their establishment ways. And you're talking people like Nancy Pelosi and Dianne Feinstein. These people are ancient dinosaurs that don't even represent their voters' wishes. I believe it was Dianne Feinstein that didn't even want to fight on the Dreamers. Come on, man. You don't even know your constituency. Now, interestingly enough, there is one person in that field of likely contenders that hasn't actually gone left, and that's Joe Biden. So again, he is the most likely establishment pick. In fact, Joe Biden recently was like talking about millennials, and he said, "Yeah, you know, I have no empathy for you. You think you got it tough? You millennials, you ain't got it tough. Come on, no empathy." Well, he's going to do very, very well with millennials in the primary. Now, that's, of course, considering that millennials are slated to be the biggest voting group or potential voting group in the 2018 and 2020. So not only that, but millennials, a lot of us are pissed and we've been screwed over. And we want somebody that actually wants to represent us and our progressive values. We want somebody who's going to do something about student loan debt. We want somebody to do something about the rising cost of healthcare, Medicare for all. More young people are identifying with socialism and democratic socialism than capitalism. They're in a world of hurt if they're going to run as this centrist, pro-corporatist neoliberal, right? And that's what Joe Biden's going to do. So nonetheless, Joe Biden, to be fair, he's still pretty popular among Democratic voters. So he and Bernie Sanders are actually very close when it comes to the polling. So we'll see how that, develops going forward. Anyway, there's more. Bernie Sanders is making sure, as I said, that he's ready. Now, according to Politico, Sanders has remained toward the top of the polls, surveying the potential Democratic field without fail after his stunning 2016 bid, and has been working methodically to address major issues that plagued him politically last time, boning up on foreign policy and making nice with a series of party power brokers. He also visited both Iowa and New Hampshire multiple times in 2017, a traditional sign of a possible run. Here comes Bernie Sanders. Feel the burn. Feel the burn. All right. So that said, let me point out how they might try to screw him. Now, for one, I mentioned this earlier. So, look, Bernie Sanders is at the top of the polls, and he consistently polls as the most popular politician in America. So what have some outlets started to do? They just left him out. Oh, no, we're going to poll Oprah. We're going to poll Mark Zuckerberg. We're going to poll all these other people, but we're not going to poll Bernie Sanders. We're going to leave him out. Oh, look at that. Oprah, super popular. Oh, look at that. Joe Biden leading the field. But wait, where's Bernie Sanders? Oh, yeah, we forgot to put him in the poll. You forgot to put the most popular politician in America and the likely frontrunner of the Democratic Party. You forgot to put him in the poll. That's not an accident. It's not like, oh, golly gee, we forgot. We forgot about Bernie. No. This is more of the Bernie blackout. And of course, this happened back in 2016. They're leaving him out on purpose. Now, there's other issues as well. Have we seen a lot of change in the DNC and the Democratic Party since 2016? No, we have not. We still have a DNC and a media establishment that favors insiders, that favors the establishment candidates, people that will, push the status quo, okay? And of course, as far as the rules go, there's still a lot of arcane rules in place that prevent, for example, independents joining into primaries, right? There's still not open primaries in a lot of places. There's still a lot of rules that are preventing people from getting into the primaries. There's registration deadlines and things that are just insane. Like, for example, New York, where you have to register way, way ahead in advance to be able to vote in the primaries. So there are those things. Basically, all the issues that were present in 2016 are basically still there. I mean, we even have super delegates. Yes. Are they reduced? Yes. There's less of them. However, they still exist, and that is a major problem, especially when you end up having such a crowded field. You get a crowded field, and you get, Bernie Sanders close to Joe Biden. Those super delegates, they might be enough to flip that race. So, and there are other examples of where this could happen. So, super delegates, that is a major problem. Anyway, not only that, but again, establishment media that does have a bias against Bernie Sanders doesn't understand why he speaks for the country, why people, actually like him, why he's so popular. They don't get it. They can't get it through their heads. So they're like, well, look, none of my establishment friends, none of my friends in business and banking like Bernie Sanders. So I guess nobody else likes Bernie Sanders. And so they'll put out these articles, and we'll see it as it gets closer and closer to these races, assuming he runs, of course, just like the Washington Post did with 16 negative articles on Bernie Sanders in 16 hours. If he runs again, of course, we're going to be facing that. But now I think he's preparing for it, and we should be prepared for it as well, because we're definitely going to see that. So those are the issues. So what do we actually need to do? Again, if Bernie Sanders is going to run, then what we need to do as progressives is to make sure that we register as soon as you're able to in your state. And you can find out all that information online, your local state, when and where to register for the primaries, and then check on your registration to make sure it's still there. You don't want to find out, as some people did back in 2016, that their registration was mysteriously changed. So making it so that you can't vote, or that you have to cast a provisional ballot, which in a lot of cases doesn't actually count. Not only that, but you should be registered already if you wanted to vote in the midterms. And now, the midterms are hugely, hugely important, especially if you want to have a Congress there that might actually pass Medicare for all and things like a living wage and things like that. But look, make no mistake. As far as I'm concerned, as long as nothing happens in between now and then, and there's still a lot of time. But I think Bernie's going to run. Run, Bernie, run. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/independent TYT Nation.